You're listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie.
Well, welcome to Dark Matter Radio. We do appreciate you being here from all around the world, from every corner that is listening to us, from India to Russia, down into Africa, South America, all the way up through Central America, the Caribbean islands, Canada, where I'm currently living and love it, and in the Americas, where I visit quite often. We do appreciate every single one of you that are out there right now, and we appreciate everything that you've done to support Dark Matter Radio and to support all of the things that have been going on for eons. It seems like when we begin to start talking about all the things dealing with the indigenous Aboriginal American, where now we know that there's many things that are afoot. Tonight I want to really get into very quickly this Joe Biden character who has been, doing all different types of things. Carmela has exceedingly just disappeared unbelievably where she is, but unknowingly. But that's the whole entire thing with all these politics. They're like your political characters, and they're like people who are just playing a role, and they're playing a very good role. This one is, dealing with what's going on with Joe Biden, is sending $2,000 stimulus checks to these very, very special Americans. Now, remember, when I begin to start talking about this topic, about how Joe Biden and this government is reacting, this is a direct reflection on all the work that everyone out there that is doing, that is reclaiming their right to return back to Aboriginal, indigenous American heritage, especially here in North America. And I'm also including Mexico in with that as well, although Mexico in many rights have been a lot less, strenuous on the way that they are treating their population. But still, you have a situation as to where a lot of the quote-unquote Afro-indigenous Mexican Americans were the ones that escaped a large part of the wars and settled down over there. But here we have that the Cherokee Nation has been dealt with nearly 15,000 confirmed coronavirus cases, and suffered 100 coronavirus-related deaths. Now listen to this, 100 coronavirus-related deaths. I just want to repeat that before I get into some of these things. Now, the Cherokee Nation, when you take a look at their board, you see exactly what they are and who they are. Basically, really, Tamahu, the Muhadi, and the Yuhai, right? They are Gog and Magog. These are the people who have been created to take the place of the actual American Indian, the actual indigenous people here in the Americas. So these Cherokee, which are not the normal or natural Cherokee, the Cherokee are the ones that have usurped the identity of the people through various different means, which we already talked about. So the Cherokee Nation has dealt with nearly 15,000 confirmed corona cases and suffered 100 confirmed coronavirus-related deaths, and will receive, listen to this now, $1.8 billion in federal stimulus money. And that's not all. The American Rescue Plan, which was signed into law in March, included a number of measures designed to provide additional support to many Americans, still struggling with the ongoing effects of the coronavirus pandemic, and to help jumpstart the American economy revival. Now, has it really done anything for your pockets thus far? Most notably, the plan called for distribution of a third round direct stimulus payments worth up to $1,400, and to date the IRS has sent out over $165 million of these payments to be eligible Americans, with total value over $380 billion US dollars, which the US dollar, as you know, is crashing as we speak. Bitcoin not too long ago dropped even what was that, almost $3 billion in just a couple of days, which is really backed by nothing. And the dollar is doing everything it can to try to combat a lot of these cryptocurrencies, which is they want to start the Fed wants to start their own cryptocurrency, and it's making people very nervous. Well, back to this news. In addition, the plan established a number of other important relief measures which nobody really heard about, many of which were tied directly to the 2020 tax return, including a $10,200 refund for those who pay taxes on unemployment benefits in 2020, and the expansion of the child tax credit. Now, a lot of people are receiving unemployment benefits are people who are on welfare. They're receiving an extra payment every week of more than $400. People on welfare. Plus, they're receiving the regular natural payments. And if they had elected to pay taxes on those, they're going to be receiving $10,200 refund. Seems like some of the real people are left out of here. The American Rescue Plan also includes a distribution of funds for use by entities other than the federal government. This is interesting. This includes $350 billion as a part of a coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund. Now, we talked about that before, right? Money embarked for use by state and federal local governments for coronavirus relief. The federal government recently promulgated guidelines for recipients of this funding, detailing ways in which the money could be used and indicating the stimulus payments resembling those distributed by the federal government represented one possible use of the money. Right? So the reason why they needed these Democrats in there, and I'm not getting into Democrats or Republicans, but the Republicans were not going to bail out the states in any reform because most of these states were already going broke, right? Before coronavirus, most of these companies were having difficulties already paying their rent and keeping their retail space. Before coronavirus, the majority of these cities were already going bankrupt, right? So what they've been asking for the past almost 10 years was for state relief, and because the Republicans were controlling a lot of the different things, or the House or the Senate, or they were in the presidency, a lot of the state relief didn't get through. A lot of these cities or states, such as Michigan, Pennsylvania, such as places like California, New York, are bankrupt. The whole entire country is bankrupt, really. I mean, with the federal government being more than $30 trillion in debt right now, and they're spending trillions and trillions of dollars, it seems like every other month, for whatever purpose. But this is their debt relief program, right? But the American Rescue Plan also includes a historic amount of funding and investing for one group in particular. Now, who is this group? The plan called for over $31 billion dedicated to support tribal governments and Native American communities. Now, the largest such program in history, now think about it, one of the largest land grabs in history were from the actual Aboriginal Indigenous Americans who were forced off their lands, killed, murdered, maimed, raped, and destroyed off of their lands, thrown into incarceration, and used as cattle fodder for a whole bunch of other things that were like experimentation, such as the experimentation that is going on now, the coronavirus experimentation, and that's what it is, because you're in a trial. Anybody who's taking the vaccine, the coronavirus 19 vaccine, which they've never isolated in anyone ever, right, out of the millions and millions and millions of people, never isolated one coronavirus antigen at all, period, on anybody's blood, right? So when you're looking at this, and these fake Native Americans, and I do call them fake Native Americans because they really didn't show up in history until about 1850. Now, when you read the book, My Dummy's No Dummy, it breaks down a lot of these different things. I'm following the timelines, giving them out. This person has actually really tracked down a lot of the different timelines that gives you the exact dates and numbers of a lot of these different things. So when you're looking at these fake American Indians, and a lot of these fake American Indians are also called out in a lot of these a lot of these testing, these DNA testing, because the DNA testing groups the American Indians, all of the Hispanics in one particular area, and that is in parts of Mexico, into Central America, and some parts of South America, and the rest of the country is void of any Native Americans, which means that all of these people have the same type of ancestry, right? And now when they come into the United States, bottom line is that, as Joe Biden said, that they're going to become the minority white, still making sure that they keep their foot on the people that they created to take the place of the original American Indian. So the other thing that I needed to get in here is that, remember, the original American Indian, or those so-called black people, African Americans, thank you Jesse Jackson, black people, thank you Al Sharpton, that are running around here, calling themselves niggas every day and all this other type stuff, disrespecting themselves, but whatever. I mean, what can you expect when you're living in a society that is purposely trying to give you all kinds of mental illnesses? I mean, there's no way that you can say a lot of people running around here on their right minds when they're running around here disparaging themselves, right? So these American Indians, which they aren't American Indians, these Native Americans, which most of them have a lot of European type style DNA with inside of them, because of what went on with the $5 Indian situation, DOS rolls and all these other types of rolls, federal recognition, because they're underneath the direction of the federal government and of the people that created them through the Doctrine of Discovery and a lot of these other different types of measures we won't get into here, right? Now, one part of the Native American community that has been hit particularly hard by this pandemic is set to receive a dedicated share of the money. The Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation, which usurped the identity, stolen the identity with the help of the federal government and other governments around the world of the original North American, Aboriginal, Indigenous American Indian, which today you call Negroes, today you call black, Afro-Americans, African Americans. The Cherokee Nation, which has dealt with nearly 15,000 confirmed virus cases, 15,000. I mean, listen to the numbers. 15,000 coronavirus cases, right? And suffered 100 coronavirus-related deaths. Will receive $1.8 billion in federal stimulus money. The Cherokee citizens each will receive $2,000 in direct assistance, with the first 1,000 coming this year and the remainder set to distribute in 2022, according to the principal clerk, Hoskin Jr. In addition, proposing spending plan announced that the Hoskin by Deputy Chief Brian Warner would see investments made into the tribal health care services into efforts to support mental health, wellness, substance abuse recovery for those heavily impacted by the pandemic. Economic development would also be a major focus of the plan. Indoctrination programs, in other words, including job training, small business programs, etc. The Council of the Cherokee Nation. The Council of the Cherokee Nation. Now, the Cherokee Nation, you gotta just pull up the picture of the Cherokee Nation and see exactly who these people are. Just pull up the picture. That's all. Then I would like for you to go back into time from the 1700s, even the early 1800s, and back and check out what the pictures look like of Cherokee people. All right. So it really should make a lot of people angry. White people, the Aboriginal, Indigenous American Indians, should make them all angry about what's going on right here. Because the Council of the Cherokee Nation will consider the proposed plan at a special council meeting set for May 27th. The Cherokee citizens are being encouraged to register for Cherokee Nation's online Gagudi portal. Anticipation for application for direct assistance opening up sometimes next month. So, and again, this is not about ripping apart the Native Americans that are alive today. Half these people probably don't even know what's going on, but I know the elders do. Right? The elders do. The elders know what's going on, because the elders, when I used to go to these powwows with my mother, who was a pure Cherokee, actual, real, pure Cherokee. Her mother was an actual, real, pure Cherokee from the Powhatan Confederacy. They would always tell you, don't be like these black people. They're not us. And they're 100% right. And that always struck me funny. Always struck me funny when it comes down to that. So, people understand the reason why Enna and so many other different people, Usurper Nation, a lot of the nations that are out there, the Accomacs, a lot of these nations that are out there, the ones that are now doing a lot of great work down there in Florida, coming out of Philadelphia, etc. A lot of ones that are down there in New Orleans, a lot of the co-creation communities that are coming online. The reason why you're coming online, the reason why you're doing this is so that we can all become one entity, so that we can come back and fight for our right of return. Our right of return is to go back into our natural state of who and what we are as beings of people, which are the original indigenous beings of the Americas. Right? Our right. And you see all these different programs that they got here. And Flint, Michigan, for the past 5 or 6 years now, and longer, has been suffering of situations to where they can't even get anything done, which is now under the protection of the Americus. And that's the system that you actually came out of, right? The Americus, the Great Law of Peace, the Ganashagawa, right? So when you begin to start looking at a lot of this stuff, I want you to really, you begin to start getting angry, you begin to start getting upset, but I really need you to get focused. And getting focused is not really, going to a lot of these, YouTubes or whatever the situation is. A lot of getting focused means that you begin to start setting up your co-creation communities. I haven't been able to get back to a lot of people because I've been getting a lot of requests, but we are going to be, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, getting with everyone and funneling them into a very secure email system, bringing them into a system as to where they can go through an embassy, the Americus Embassy, right? The Americus Embassy, and be able to begin the right of return, and bringing you into the places of where there are indigenous American states where you can be linked up to, so that you can begin to start having some protection. Begin to start putting your area under the protection, so that that way you can develop your co-creation community, your healing zones, and everything that I just read here should be going to our people, because our people are the most devastated people on the face of the earth, because we don't own a damn thing. Don't own anything. Don't own anything. So why are these niggas always yelling and screaming about money? Why are these niggas always yelling and screaming about programs? Why do they always have these different type of programs and put these black people in all these jobs and all this other type of stuff? Why are they always begging and looking like they homeless and this, that, and the other thing? Well, what do you expect when you have a situation as to where you stole every damn thing from them? You stole every damn thing from them. Experimented with every single type of virus and created all kinds of viruses inside of the system, specifically to break through the neomelanin to destroy and kill their population. Raped and killed a host majority of their children. These weren't sacrifices like Jesus on the cross. These were people who were robbed, kidnapped out of their homes, off their lands, not from Africa, but right here in the Americas. And then you wonder why a certain population is always held on the bottom. People are like, oh, I understand racism. I understand racism. I understand racism very, very well. You speak to these college professors and all this other type of stuff. They have it all laid out. Great, beautiful charts about racism. Well, none of these people have any empathy about anything until it begins to happen to them. Nobody has any empathy about running around and being called an animal. Believe the science, they tell you. Believe the science. But you're an animal. Your DNA says that you come from something that is not quote-unquote human. But on the other end of it, all these other people, a lot of these other people call themselves humankind. So what are they really? What are we? What are they? As they're separating us in the world. But I'm telling you, we're at a point now with all this coronavirus stuff going on as to where you cannot now you can now begin to start understanding where they're really coming from with all the information that are coming out. Because these people are killing people once again. And what they're doing to the Aboriginal American Indian is letting them know and trying to put them back into their place like they did back in the 1800s when they began to start giving away all of our land. When the Moorish empires came over here and began to start raping and killing our women and bringing the Tamahu over here with them. There's another whole entire argument, or not even an argument, but facts to consider when you start talking about the 13 black colonies. Why would they call them the 13 black colonies when supposedly all the people were white, but white wasn't created until 1630s, 1640s? And why was the word white created? It was created because of Bacon's Rebellion. What was Bacon's Rebellion? Bacon was a person who was of medium means. He was a businessman, but he was having a lot of difficult problems with the economy coming out from the crown over in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And what did Bacon do? What he did, he got together all the different remnants of society. Whites, poor whites, the ones that they brought over here that were in indentured servitude were actually the slaves. They captured American Indians, which were the black people, who they were throwing almost not only into indentured servitude, but they're also throwing into the prisoners of war. And they got these groups of people that were together, including the ones that were becoming mixed people, and created a war like they had never seen before here in the Americas. And what happened? They almost won. The government of Britain had to spend almost 10% of the total resources to quell Bacon's Rebellion. And Bacon's Rebellion was the first time where all of the races on the planet that got together to fight against the tyranny of the world government of the doctrine of discovery, of the Papal Bull, of the Moorish empires, of the people who came over here to genocide our people, to genocide you. That was Bacon's Rebellion. As a result of Bacon's Rebellion, what they did, they took the poor whites and took them off of being indentured servants and created them to be some sort of citizens that were going to be above all the other races that were here, all the other copper-colored races that were here in the Americas. And they did this so that they can have a special privileged people to be able to help defend against any of the uprisings of the copper-colored people of the Americas. Remember, at this time, there were virtually no Africans on the soil of the whole entire continent of the Americas. Bacon's Rebellion then gave in to what the Virginia colonies began to start putting into laws of creating, for the first time, white people. So before then, there were no such thing as white people. White people were a created social construct so that they can create these things called race. And it wasn't until Charles Darwin and his fake little report that came out to make sure that the white race was considered to be the primary special species on the planet, covering the origins of the actual species of every species on the planet, creating them out of monkeys. And the first set of monkeys were black people, who never really evolved to the level of what you'd call white people, the newly created race on the planet. And there was reasons why they created all these different things, is because of all the things that Napoleon found over there in Abydos, on the walls of Abydos, which disturbed him and the people that were looking at that so much as to where they had to begin a process for the first time of their own understanding of who and what they are and where they came from. The majority of those people. And I do believe when you talk about Meg and Magog, or the Muslims, the Juha and the Muhaji, when you look at those people, this is where I believe that these people were, and they were released onto the world. Vicious, dangerous people, and we're still living on that now. Still living in there now. So when you have people usurping and taking the resources that you're supposed to have, even still to this day, they look at you as animals and treat you as animals, keeping the state of animals. And you will stay in that state as long as you listen to your reverends and your ministers who do not speak the purpose of what the God is within you speaks. And you will stay in that state as long as you follow these politicians, these movie stars, these music industries, any of these things that you consider to be of the nature of Yaldabra. And out of the sulfuric pistis energy which has created you and put that breath of life in you, that spark called a soul, that light being of the original created humans that were in another total dimension. Understand who and what you are and what's going on here. All these stimulus checks, all these places are trying to get you to do something which is self-genocide. Self-genocide. Self-promoting. Self-hating. So that's why I ask you, for every single one of you who are not of the elite, to stand up, rise up, and be a part of the movement of taking back your rights. Protecting your lives, your children's lives, your family lives. Help the process of the right of return. And in that way, regardless if you're white or black, you'll be able to be in a society and a system where you'll be able to live in peace. Don't have to worry about these viruses, anybody trying to kill you or genocide you off the face of the earth. If there are 8 billion people on the earth, which they say is very overcrowded, 8 billion people can all fit in Texas. So let's just remember that. There is no such thing as overcrowding. All these things are a bunch of two-faced, two-foot phony lies to usurp you so that they can bring the population down to 500 million, use a certain people as cattle, so that they can constantly keep on harvesting the genetic material to improve themselves. Every single so-called white person on the face of this earth is in jeopardy of being genocided off the earth as well, because they don't look at you. They look at you as deficient. They want to be the new gods of the planet. Who are they? A lot of these people consider themselves part of the elite. And if you follow the elite, you're going to end up right where they want you. Gone. Completely and totally gone. This is Dark Matter Radio. Joe Biden and the boys have already told Jesse Jackson, in your black political system, the new white minority are the people you're going to have to be dealing with. And if they are telling the truth, told you by 2030, 2050, the black people, the so-called black people of the United States will be worth zero, and I can see exactly where that's going now. There might not be many of us left. There may not be many of us left by 2025 on the planet. This is hard truth, hard talking, but this is not going to be going on YouTube, so this is going to be directly on my other platforms. So I want you to understand, please join Dark Matter Radio. Please join I Am Not the Elite. Please join the right of return of the original people to the Americus, out of this political system into the political system or the system upon which they came from. The future of the world is the destiny of our choices. And we all better choose right. With knowledge and by questioning everything. Questioning everything. Joe Biden is sending a lot of money, which he seemingly doesn't even care anymore because the system's probably getting ready to crash pretty soon, to people who they call Native Americans, which I have nothing against Native Americans, but I do have something against the system and the way that they genocided my people off this place, gave away my land, gave away our homes, gave away our resources, killed our people, raped our women, and similarly did the same to their own people as well, and then gave it to somebody else, and then gave my name and my heritage to somebody else, and then somebody else is living like me, living as me, living as you, or anyone who would consider themselves Aboriginal indigenous beings of the world. This is Dark Matter Radio. This is the station for the right of return to the Americus. I am not the elite. Great Grand Rising to us all.